fan cams, club news, transfer news, match previews, legend interviews, Spurs women, press conferences, covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, I'll be talking to very special guest and channel regular Josh Hughes, sports journalist with the Daily Mail. We'll be discussing everything Tottenham and the transfer window. We are live on YouTube, on X and on Facebook, so please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And remember that all of these podcasts are also available on all major audio platforms. Please do check out the channel sponsors, Alloy Collectors, Zooch Converters, Echo 61 and TalkSport. Josh, great to have you here. How are you?
Pleasure to be back. Yeah, doing really well. Had an absolute blast in Germany. I know you did too.
Yeah.
So good to be out in a summer tournament in a sort of quote unquote normal country at a normal time. No winter tournaments here. Sun was shining. I mean, it was boiling hot, but Berlin was it was a dream. 7 goals, 2 games. 70, 80, 90,000 maybe Dutch fans bouncing left to right. It was unbelievable.
Looked incredible. Perhaps I should have done that, just gone to Germany and stayed in one place, because it seemed that I was on a train every single day. Well, I was on a train every single day, sometimes 5 hours in one day. It was a tiring trip, but I tell you what, it was an absolutely fantastic trip. I'd definitely do that again.
How many of them were delayed? I saw
every single day. Every day. Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah. It's funny, Josh, because every single time I've gone to Germany, everything has run on time. It's run like clockwork. It's been absolutely superb. But this time, yeah, every single day the trains were delayed. But we're not here to talk about that. We will talk about the Euros in a little while, though. But before we do get started on the Tottenham news, you are just about to embark on a new adventure. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So it's taken a lot of convincing and a lot of kind of thought, and it got to a point. I had a chat with you, Chris. We spoke for well over an hour, and it was a case of just go out and do it. I mean, I've trained in broadcast. I have a background in national TV and radio. I've always loved it, and I've moved away from that in my current job. But I really wanted to do something more about that. And there's 1,000,001 podcasts about the Premier League and 1,000,001 things about Tottenham as well, like this great channel. But something I'm really passionate about, and I spend a lot of time, probably far too much time in my spare time doing, is researching, watching and studying European football. So I'm going to be launching a brand new podcast at the start of next season, which is going to be all about European football. And the first episode is going to be having just been in Berlin. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bundesliga, having had, Harry Kane's first full season, Eric Dyer going there, João Palhinha now from Fulham going to Bayern. And it seems to be a market where young English players are going more and more regularly. But also there's some really interesting stories from a fan perspective. And I think us in England, I think we could learn quite a lot from the way they do it out there. And that, it's not just reflective of being out of the Euros, which, I think from a fan point of view was superb. But actually, the whole sort of being out there it's a different thing. The mentality of it is completely different. So I'm going to dig into Union Berlin. I'm going to dig into the Bundesliga with a new European football podcast. Every episode we'll talk about a different league, more things going on. We'll do a little player watch as well, because I know obviously Spurs are going to be very active this summer, especially players from Europe. So really excited to be launching that at the start of next season.
Well, Josh, best of luck with it, and hopefully a lot of our subscribers will also subscribe to your channel. So when that is set up, please do come back and we will get as many people as we can to subscribe to your channel. Now, let's start by talking about a European target at the moment for Spurs. Désiré Doué, Fabrizio Romano, in the last 24 hours has said it is true that Tottenham do have a genuine interest in this player. This is not something new. The interest has been there, and he is one of the players appreciated by the Tottenham board. Doué is one of the best talents in his position, and he is on the list of several clubs, including Tottenham. First of all, Tottenham have just signed Archie Gray, which of course we'll talk about in a minute as well, Josh. And that is a wonderful signing for Tottenham. Fabrizio Romano then goes on to say, but it is also true that the Désiré Doué is another player that they are considering. Internally, they have already expressed their interest to the agents of the player, so Doué is one to watch for Tottenham, but not only for Tottenham, as several clubs are following him. Josh, first of all, what do you make of Désiré Doué? And, like I said, we've just signed Archie Gray, one of the top talents in England. We're now going after one of the top talents in Europe. What is the likelihood of this deal actually happening?
Yeah, this one seems to be gathering a lot of pace, actually. The more I speak to people and the more I hear, this is one that has, picked up quite a lot in the last 24, 48 hours. I must say, when we were first linked with him about a month or two ago, I'd never heard of him. So off I went, watched loads of videos, looked at the stats, had a look at what people were saying. And there's a really, really good explainer on why Désiré Doué would suit Tottenham from Euro expert Alex, who works at The Athletic. He did a brilliant video on it. And, this is someone that comes from Stade Rennais. He's being talked about in the same kind of way as they spoke about Ousmane Dembélé. And that's, a huge amount of pressure to put on a young player. But that is because what he has done this season, I think it's 4 goals, 4 assists. What he is a take-on specialist. He's very different to a Son. He plays this season, he's played predominantly on the left. He can play in a range of different positions as well. But rather than being the type of player that is going to cut inside and shoot all the time, that's actually probably one of the areas that those who study him a lot and have followed him week in, week out, said he needs to improve that and his pass completion rate. This is a player that doesn't actually pass the ball all that much. This is someone that takes the ball, has an enormous array of skills and tricks. He's lightning quick, and he's someone that's going to take players down the outside, whip balls into the box, and make stuff happen. I think at Tottenham, we've always enjoyed watching players. We've had so many players down the years that I would categorize in the kind of, they get you off your seat type players, where for all their faults, they can be really exciting. I think of Lucas Moura when he was at his best. He was one of those players that, when he ran at players, he could make stuff happen. Gareth Bale did that, when he started to transition into this absolute world beater. We love a player that has a bit of trickery, and we love a player with a bit of flair. And Désiré Doué is going to be that type of player. Now, there is a real risk in terms of, is he ready now? That's the natural question when he's a teenager coming into a league like the Premier League. My answer is, I think he will be ready. I mean, he's played week in, week out for Stade Rennais in Liga, and he has been absolutely superb. I think he'll suit the Ange system as well, because Ange seems to like these high and wide wingers that take people on. And I think that's what we've kind of lacked a little bit. Kulusevski struggled with the take-ons down the right. Timo Werner, when he actually does decide to take a player on, has been quite effective, but that's been kind of hit and miss. This is someone that will frustrate teammates, I think, at times, especially if his skills don't come off, because he may lose the ball in high-up areas. However, it's someone that is going to deal with, I think, our single biggest problem when we're going forward, which is playing against teams that sit really, really deep. I've always been a believer that the only way to break down those teams, the Wolverhamptons of the Premier League, that just put everyone behind the ball, is to actually run at players, because that drags defenders out of position. It's the only way to drag players out of that rigid shape. So he's going to do that, and that in turn may create more space for the likes of Maddison, Bergwijn, if he gets a look in next season, Archie Gray, Brennan Johnson, Sonny, Richarlison, you name it. So really exciting player. I must say, it's one that I'm going to trust the recruitment team here because they've not got an awful lot wrong in recent years. But yeah, my knowledge of him has been having to look at the stats, look at what people that do know what they're talking about, have to say about him. And, all of the noises are really positive. Only look at the clubs that are interested. I mean, Bayern Munich being one of them, and PSG as well. It says all you need to know when these types of clubs are interested.
Josh, of course, in the last couple of days, it has been announced by Tottenham Hotspur that Archie Gray has signed from Leeds United a contract until 2030, 18 years old. And I've just picked up on what you just said there, talking about Lucas Bergwijn saying, if ready and if given the chance. Now, I think a lot of people are very excited about this signing. I have seen some comments and some people slightly concerned saying, well, we need players for now. We don't need 18-year-olds for the future. In my opinion, I think we need that balance. Absolutely, we need that balance. Not only is Ange wanting to build for the future, but he wants, a good team for now to compete on all fronts. What do you make of the signing of Archie Gray? And when you look at all of the players, these youngsters, Bergwijn, Gray, you've got all of the guys in the under-21s as well. You've got the players that are in the squad at the moment. It does look very bright, doesn't it? But I think the main thing that a lot of us will be stating throughout this window is that we do need players that have been there, done it. And I'm going to throw the name Eze to you. I know we've spoken about this before, but we all want, that mix. That's what we need, isn't it?
For sure. I think that's vitally important. But I think that we've also got to not get too carried away with what we're seeing, because we're seeing Bergwijn 18, Archie Gray 18. We're seeing these types of players come in, but it's one thing just buying a prospect. These are all players, by the way, and Doué is another one, that have played week in, week out in a top professional league, first team football. This is not signing a player that's going to go into the under-21s. This is signing players for quite a bit of money that will go straight into the first team. And the reason being because they are so exceptionally talented for their age that Tottenham are taking the risk and the plunge now because they know. Well, let's talk about Archie Gray. The one time I did see him, he absolutely bossed Chelsea's £222 million midfield of Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. Now, I know some Spurs fans might say, well, that's not particularly difficult. They've been rubbish. But for an 18-year-old to go to Stamford Bridge, a ground where Tottenham, historically really struggle at, and put on a show like that, and he did put on a show, says all you need to know about a player at this age. He can play right back. He can play an array of different positions. I thought, actually, for an 18-year-old, he spoke especially well in his interview with the club as well. And I was really impressed by that. And so let's also remember that Ange does not want players coming into the club if they don't have the right character. Mentality is massive for him. So these players are being selected because they're mature beyond their years. They've got ability beyond their years. It's all well and good saying, oh, we need players for now, which we do, but there's no way of knowing if they're ready for now if they're not given a chance. And I think that you only need to look at Kim Min-jae and you only need to look at Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, two players that Tottenham had the opportunity. They had one hand on those deals. And we chose to go, well, the board, Daniel Levy, chose against those deals. And look at those two players now. One plays for Bayern Munich. The other is, for me, would have been number one to replace Sonny, but we simply can't afford him because he will cost well over £100 million. Conte's already said he's going nowhere. So, this is about finding that next group of players that will become, within a year, could be the next Kvaratskhelia, could be the next Son. You don't know until they've been given a chance. And they're obviously being bought for a lot of money because of how good they are. Spurs don't normally throw money about for the sake of it. Let's talk about Eze then. I think he's target number one for all of us, really. I think everyone knows the ability that he would and the quality he would bring to the team. I mean, you only need to look at his impact against Slovakia when he came on. He was the one that crossed the ball in, which Tony nodded on to Harry Kane. And, you know, he was really, really exciting when he came on. That is an expensive deal to do. Now, I know...
Josh, I just want to ask you the very direct question on Eze. Is it as simple as a team just saying to Crystal Palace, here is £60 million. There you go. Deal done. Is it that simple?
It should be, but that's not what teams are doing at the minute. At the minute, clubs have been, you know, not just Spurs, but other clubs have been looking to offload players. There's PSR, there's FFP, there's, you know, clubs trying to get rid of deadwood that they can't get rid of, you know, and so teams are trying to get clever with a deal with Palace and say, okay, here's so-and-so a player. Let's offer you 2 players plus some cash. Will that do? Now, Palace don't need to sell Eze. They're in no financial position by which they have to sell. Mm-hmm. So their point of view will be, he's got a release clause. If you don't meet the release clause, well, we're not going to sell him. Unless you offer Crystal Palace 2 absolutely unbelievably good players plus cash. I can't see it happening. I cannot see how an Eze deal will happen to any club in those circumstances. I think it really is a case of pay the release clause. Will Spurs do that? It would be a club record signing. I'm hopeful. I do think that Spurs will make a marquee signing, maybe even 2 marquee signings this summer. And I fully expect Eze to be one of them. You know, provided we act quickly, because this is the thing, obviously still at the Euros, it will all heat up in the week or 2 straight after the Euros. I'll be surprised if he even has a holiday. He might have a couple of days away, but he's probably going to be on his phone waiting to hear what's going on. So, yeah, I think what I'm looking for as a fan and from a Spurs perspective is, if you want to go and get Eze, you can go and get him. You pay the price and that is it. Then you convince the player, offer him the right wages. Don't think personal terms will be an issue, but it really is that simple. Show your ambition, go and get him. Because if not, someone else will.
Josh, regarding Gray and Bergwijn, how much game time do you think they will actually get next season under Postecoglou?
Well, it all depends on pre-season, really. I mean, you hear the way that Gray spoke about pre-season. He said that there are things he's going to have to learn. He can't wait to learn these things. But one of the great things about Gray, one of the great things about Bergwijn too, is, in my opinion, their ability to play multiple positions.
Yeah.
And Spurs have been really, really shot in previous seasons. I mean, we felt it in those winter months last year when Van der Ven and Madden got injured, and we played City away and got a 3-3 draw somehow with 4 fullbacks as our back line. I mean, this is where we're at, and it's about squad depth. We've got the Europa League. I think there's no excuses to not go and at least get to the final. We should be looking to win that competition, looking at the teams in there, 100%. Manchester United is our biggest rival to win that, and I think we're a better team than Manchester United. So there's going to be plenty of games, plenty of opportunity. It's not just the few games that we had last season. We're going to have so many more potentially. You know, if we were to somehow have a miracle season, obviously I don't think we're going to win everything, but we could have up to 60 games next season. So, you know, there is going to be opportunity, but also, you know, when there's injuries, when there's problems, these players are going to have to step up. And I think Gray's ability to play right back is going to be good. It means that we may choose not to replace Emerson Royale. I don't know. They may choose to prioritize other positions. That one looks like it's happening to AC Milan. But also, you know, Bergwijn can play deeper. He can play as a 10. You know, this is what Ange wants. Ange wants players that can play multiple positions, because you never know who's going to get injured and what team you might come against. You might want to change things around for certain teams because of their personnel. So, you know, I've seen someone's comment there saying it's the most excited I've been, or most optimistic I've felt for years between seasons, and I completely agree. Because not only are we going and getting real exciting top talent, you know, players that are being wanted by the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs of this world, we're not only competing with the biggest clubs in the world. We're beating the biggest clubs in the world to these signings. But also, I think there's plenty of room yet to get rid of players and bring in some more experienced players. As I say, I expect one, maybe even two marquee signings.
How impressed have you been again, Josh, that, I've banged on about it all year that we need another summer transfer window exactly the same as the last one, and we got business done early. As Spurs fans, in recent years, we're so used to waiting right until deadline day, but it just seems to be business getting done early yet again at Spurs. It's great to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the comments just says, we've invested in the training ground, the stadium over the years. Is this the time, to fully invest in the squad? And the answer is yes. I think this is the time. Ange would not be at the club if the club wasn't going to back him. And we had a good window last year. I don't think we had a perfect window. We definitely needed a striker. I think we'll rectify that this summer. But look how we acted. It's not just acting quick in the summer, which we did, but look how quickly we acted in January.
Yeah.
We were the only team to have made a signing at one point at the start of the January transfer window. I mean, we got the business done super, super early in January. And I think this is the way to go, because Ange, he came in, he was appointed right before the start of pre-season. It was very late, and I don't think he had the full time with his squad that he needed. And I was absolutely astounded by our start to the season, considering, you were traveling all around the world watching Spurs. We were a laughing stock, our pre-season. It's the most disgraceful pre-season, I've seen the club have, to have games cancelled and be flying all over the Far East. And, it just made no sense. And you're having players coming in, the Barcelona game being the first game that some players are having with the squad. It was just, there wasn't enough game time for the players. There wasn't enough preparation. And I think this summer it's going to be different, because now we've seen what Ange is doing. Ange will have had a clearer picture. As soon as the January transfer window ended, he would have known exactly what he needed for the summer. And we're going out and acting so far. And I think obviously it's good that we've got Archie Gray over the line. Doué looks like it could pick up pace very quickly. I'm not saying it's happening, but it's one that all the right noises are happening at the minute. And then we've got the Euros to finish. So think of all the players at the Euros now, and that have just been at the Euros, that Spurs may look to go for. Pedro Netto is another one that we've been linked with. He's still away with Portugal. Eze with England. Calafiori, who sadly looks like he may be heading to Arsenal, but he's another one that Spurs have liked. He's, only just been dumped out of the competition with Italy. So, this next few weeks, this next 2-3 weeks, I think we're going to see quite a lot happening.
Josh, it's fair to say that Ange is definitely being backed at the football club, because, the transfer window last summer, January, as you just mentioned, we were one of the only Premier League clubs to actually bring players in. I know some fans didn't like the players that come in, Timo Werner for one, but it's fair to say that he is being backed, isn't it? And we fully expect him to be backed and literally crossing off everyone on his shopping list this summer.
Well, I'm not sure I would go with crossing off everyone on his shopping list, because we know what Spurs are like, and it's very probable that our target A in certain positions, we may end up with target B or target C. But that's why the club have very long lists for each position. You only have to look at what Paul O'Keefe says on Twitter. He talks about the long lists all the time, and Spurs will have 6, 7, 8 plus players. In the striker position, in the winger position, but it's a profile that Ange is after. I think that's the most important thing. It's a profile and it's a mentality. So, I think he is being backed. That's very obvious to see. And for all my criticism of the board, and how I feel about the board, you've got to give them that. They are backing him. Whether they fully back him is another question, because I felt last summer that we had such an opportunity to have a 9-10 out of 10 window if we'd just gone and got that striker. But, it looks like, we've done enough to improve on the season before, now, and now I think the end of the season showed where our real problems lie. And I think that, we're going to bring in those profiles to rectify that. Am I under any doubt that we're going to have a stronger squad and a better chance than this season? Absolutely. I think we will 100%, have a much stronger chance in all aspects of our season, from Carabao Cup to the Europa League. I don't think we're going to be seeing what happened at Fulham away in the Carabao Cup next season. I think we're going to be far more competitive.
Yeah. Josh, you mentioned Italian centre-back Riccardo Calafiori. What has happened to Tottenham's interest in him? Because, as you mentioned, it does look like Arsenal are sniffing round and talking to his agents, and it could, possibly be a deal where he'll go to Arsenal instead of Spurs. What's happened there, in your opinion? And if Spurs did bring in a player of that quality, how would it work with Dragushin, Van de Ven, Romero, and of course, we could throw in Ashley Phillips there as well, because he had a very successful loan spell at Plymouth. Do you think he's going to get game time? But if Spurs bring in another real quality player, a centre-back, how do they work out the game time in certain games?
Well, I think there's two things. One is you're looking at Manchester City level depth. If a player like Calafiori came through the door. Ridiculous depth, but Calafiori, is very comfortable on the left-hand side. And what that tells me is Spurs would not be going for fullbacks. Spurs would not be going for a backup for Destiny Udogie, and we won't be going for a backup for Romero. Sorry, for Porro as well. Because what that tells me is Van de Ven then becomes the left-sided the left back. From the left-sided centre-back role, Calafiori can go in there, and then you've got Archie Gray who can fill in at right-back. But the problem is £42 million there or thereabouts asking price for Calafiori. Now, understandably, Juventus want him, but Bologna don't want to sell because they're a Champions League club. They're now, rivals. It makes no sense to do that when they've got their own ambitions. But Arsenal, although they've got Gabriel and Saliba, they're at a point now where they're looking to win the title. They're looking to guarantee themselves the title. I mean, they came so close last season. And for them, now is the time to have that fourth centre-back, because they've also got Timber. And, they're also going to be going for the Champions League, going for the FA Cup. And I feel like Spurs are just a little bit off of that so far. I mean, we've not challenged yet. So, we're not at that stage of our project, if you want to call it a project. I mean, I hate that term because it feels like a constant state of waiting. But I don't think he's coming to Spurs at all. It looks like he's going to Arsenal because I think Spurs, in this situation, it's better to put their money elsewhere. Right now, because, let's be real, Dragushin had a superb Euros. I don't think anyone could deny that. He was outstanding for Romania. His stats were just insane. I think I can't remember, it was you that I messaged or someone else. I said that he will win us something, Dragushin, if he has that mentality, that putting his body on the line. It was just outstanding to watch. Actively, we're looking forward to watching Romania to see how he would play. Van de Ven, we all know his quality. Same with Romero, who's having an absolutely storming Copa America. I mean, he's just been outstanding once again. I think that situation would force us to play back three if we had a fourth centre back come in beyond that. But maybe Ashley Phillips is done enough. I don't know whether he'll be loaned out again. I think probably. But I think it's hard to dispute his loan at Plymouth. I think we've got to at least give him a chance. So maybe if we do go for a centre-back, we may do so late in the window. But I think we're going to have to assess Phillips first and Dragushin when he comes back, because I think it would be completely unfair on those players to not give them a proper go, given how well they've been playing.
Josh, you mentioned the word rebuild, and of course we are still going for a rebuild. It's it's just the way it is. That's facts. But I think that Ange Postecoglou, since his time at Spurs, has offloaded a number of players that a lot of fans wanted us to. That is, of course, continuing. Jed Spencer's another one. Emerson Royale is another. Højbjerg, who we'll talk about in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about Jed Spence at the moment, because BBC Sport have stated that Genoa remain interested in the Tottenham defender, but they cannot agree a fee. He is now expected to be offered to other clubs. The Genoa sporting director, Marco Ottolini, said, "I cannot say that the negotiations are closed because we have almost 55 market days left, but there are no conditions to renew." What do you make of this situation? Do you think that he will end up playing in England, or do you think that Spurs and Genoa will somehow come up with a deal in the next 55 days? Because it's obvious, he's never going to play under Ange Postecoglou. You don't want to get to a position where these players are still hanging around so close to the end of the window. What do you think will happen here?
Yeah, for sure. He's not going to play for Spurs. We know that. But I think the situation with Genoa is slightly difficult because they are a club which doesn't have a huge amount of money. And this is a problem that a lot of European clubs face, is not having a lot of money and having to be really, really careful and considerate of how you spend that money through player sales, through,
I should have added, Josh, that in another comment, he said Tottenham are a rich club, as though like Spurs have got the money. So just give him to us on the cheap. Yeah,
but this is it. So, and this is what I'm alluding to here is, they've just agreed a deal to sign a goalkeeper, Martinez, for I think it's around 13.5 million euros plus some add-ons, and that probably then rules them out of their ability to sign Spence for 10 million euros. 10 million euros is nothing in Premier League terms, but yeah. The rest of the world isn't as inflated. It's other than Saudi in the Premier League, the rest of the world just simply is not as inflated as the Premier League. I think, yes, Spurs are absolutely well within their rights and correct to offer him elsewhere. But what I would say is, I think the player may have a bit of say in this. If the player really wants to go to Genoa, you'd expect, Spurs to stand firm and the player to, or the agent of the player to give them a nudge, really. But, with Jed Spence, you just don't know. He could end up a Galatasaray player next season for all we know. I mean, it's just, he's one of them. He may end up, he could end up in Qatar. Who knows? Either way, I don't think he's going to be at Spurs. And I think that Spurs will get a fee for him. Whether it's 10 million euros, I don't know. But I think we certainly will get some money on him. But I think this is, similarly to a number of players, we're going to have to accept that we're going to make a loss on this one.
Josh, you might laugh at me here when I mention this name, but I had the pleasure to watch him in Germany for Spain. Nico Williams. What are the chances?
Very, very slim at this stage. I mean, there's no doubt Spurs like him. Spurs 100% do like him. That is for certain. He's on the list, but he will be on the list of every single top club looking for a left winger. Barcelona really want him, and I think he would be very keen on Barcelona too, from the things that I've seen. So they've obviously got their financial mess. We'll have to see what happens, but as far as that one is concerned, I mean, there's a release clause that was there. £43 million. I can't remember off the top of my head when that deal expires, if that's expired now or not. I think it's still active, but someone will be able to correct me. You'll be able to correct me, I'm sure. But he's playing really well, really, really well for Spain, isn't he? The two players that I've looked at from Spain, and I think, I'll have a bit of him, is Williams and also Dani Olmo. Those are the two that I've been really impressed by. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because it's not impossible. But I think from his point of view, if you're Nico Williams, are you going to be coming to Spurs if a Champions League side or a side ready to win a trophy right now is in for you? I think that's what it might come down to, because there's no doubt Spurs would be able to afford that. There's no doubt that the Premier League is a great offer and he would start week in, week out. But will the player want that move? I'm not so sure.
It's the sort of players, though, Josh, we should be targeting and signing, because I tell you what, you put Williams and Eze into that Spurs squad, I tell you what, we'd all be super excited ahead of the new season.
No, it's not even about super excited. We would challenge. I really think we would challenge with players like that. Absolute game changers. We would genuinely challenge. That's where we're at. I really think that Spurs are 2-3 quality signings away from being able to get really close to the Arsenals and the Cities. I'm not saying we'd win the Premier League. Don't take what I'm saying too far, but Spurs would close that gap significantly. And I think if you're Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, you're thinking, "Oh, we're in for a tough one here." So I want to see Spurs go, and I want to see Spurs get a striker for sure. But those two, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know their impact.
Josh, you mentioned Pedro Netto earlier, and in previous windows, we've been linked to Pedro Netto. Fabrizio Romano even said that he's still on Tottenham's radar. Is this realistic for this window?
I think it's one we'll have to just wait and see. I'm going to give you a politician's answer because I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Things change so quickly. I mean, this is the thing. We could be in a situation where tomorrow Doué is coming to Spurs and then he's ready for his medical, and then no, PSG have signed him. Look what happened with Gray and Brentford. So yeah. We just have to wait and see. But I think we're going to be happy with the end of the window.
Josh, AS in Spain have just reported that Manchester United are keen on re-signing Tottenham's left-back Sergio Reguilon, who, of course, spent the first half of last season on loan at Old Trafford. Does this one surprise you?
Not entirely. I mean, he was really impressive, I thought, at Brentford. I don't think he had a huge amount of game time at Man United, but I was certainly impressed with what I saw of him at Brentford. He's a player that Spurs clearly want to get rid of. He clearly wants to go. I mean, he made his feelings clear when he took to social media. He tweeted about Man United not too long ago, only a few months ago. So I think he's made his intentions clear. And, United are in a similar position to us. They're rebuilding. They're looking to build a team capable of winning trophies again. So they're going to need some squad depth. And let's face it, Reguilon's not going to cost £30 million. He'll be quite cheap. So a player that knows Carrington, knows the players, knows the Ten Hag system, and has shown good form towards the end of the season at Brentford. I think from a United perspective, it's probably quite a sensible signing as a backup. It's low risk, and from a Spurs perspective, we're not going to get huge money for him, but at least it clears the decks a little bit more, and it's another player, sort of deadwood, that doesn't want to be there or isn't going to get the minutes that helps us along in our way of getting more players through the door.
Josh, so many reports have stated that AC Milan and Spurs are still in talks about Emerson Royal. Apparently, AC Milan want the deal done as quickly as possible for him to start first day at pre-season. How confident are you that this will be done very soon, this week, perhaps?
I think so. I think it's looking that way. I mean, the point of difference was the fee, and I think this is where we're struggling. Is AC Milan, like every club wants to sign Tottenham's players for a lot cheaper than what we are putting them up for sale for.
Yeah.
And I think that from what I understand, the situation is not the case that it's not a Tongi and Ndombele or a Reguilon where the club, I think, is actively looking to push the player out. It's more, if the money is right, they're happy to let him go because that helps us, bring more players in that want to be there, that are going to get the minutes. And I think Emerson Royale, from all the noises that have come out from sort of his camp, it looks like he wants the move. I mean, who doesn't want to move to AC Milan? It's a brilliant club. But I think AC Milan are going to have to stump up the money. I think Spurs could be prepared to keep hold of him if they're not going to come to an agreement. Now, I know they're pushing. For it. I mean, that's what all the reports are saying. They're pushing. Everyone is saying this. But I can't see Spurs allowing AC Milan to kind of pull the pants down over this, because it's not an essential sale. And it's not, especially, a player like, him, who we've signed for, upwards of, £20 million in total, he's not we're not going to allow him to go for 10 million. It's just not going to happen. But I think they'll come to some form of agreement.
Josh, you mentioned Tonki Ndombele. Of course, he's just signed a 2-year deal at Nice. Does that surprise you?
Well, let's see how he does. I don't wish him anything bad. It's good to see him back home and good to see him actually have a club, because I thought there was going to be a point where he might not even get a club. So, I'm praying for him because he's got all the ability in the world. Let's just hope he
wrote a nice farewell message to the Spurs fans, though, didn't he?
Yeah, and I thought that was a little bit strange because the abuse was unbelievable. But you know what? I don't think it's right that as Spurs fans, we go and attack players when they've gone. He's gone. He wasn't good enough. His attitude wasn't right. He's clearly got lots of issues there. But there's no doubting the guy's ability. So let's just hope that that he can rebuild some form, and get back to his best.
Josh, you mentioned about us having a number of young stars for the future. Now, it's been widely reported that Mikey Moore has got interest from Borussia Dortmund, and the Football Insider, I don't know whether you saw it today, have stated that Manchester City and Manchester United have now made offers to Tottenham sensation Mikey Moore, because, of course, he can't sign a professional contract until he's 17. He is still 16. So multiple clubs are trying to get his signature at the moment for him to sign for them. What do you make of it, and what do you make of if Mikey Moore was still a Spurs player at the start of the season? How much game time in the first team do you think he might get under Postecoglou?
Well, I think I'm not surprised that all the top clubs are looking at Mikey Moore, because we know what a prospect he is, and the way that he played for the England under-17s as well was superb. Yeah. But I'm not worried about it at all. I think he'll still be a Spurs player. I don't think we need to get rid. I don't think he right now would have. I'm sure you're going to have your head turned, but from what I understand, he's a Spurs fan, and he's come through the system as a kid. I don't think he will necessarily feel any reason to go. There's a reason why he was involved in the first team last season towards the back end over the likes of Lancashire and Santiago, etc., because Spurs know what a talent they have, and they know that they need to potentially have to convince him to stay. And so I'm expecting him to be very heavily involved in pre-season, and I'm expecting him to get plenty of minutes in that time, because otherwise we will lose him. I think it is as simple as that. A player of that quality, I think he knows how good he is, and all the people around him know how good he is. But, I don't know his situation in terms of his support network or anything like that. So, I don't know whether he's going to have people in his ear or not. But, I think Spurs know that they've got to give him a chance and give him opportunities if they want to keep him, because any top player, is going to attract interest from the biggest clubs, especially at that age. And in that situation where you've not signed a professional contract because of your age, other clubs will see that as an absolute steal.
Josh, the last couple of times I've spoken to you, including this evening, you seem to be very optimistic about the way that Spurs fans will be feeling at the end of the window. You seem to be very confident that Spurs will get a number of deals done that everyone's going to be happy about. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's because look at last window. I mean, we had a pretty good window, and we're acting early. And the truth is, if you look at the FFP and the PSR data, you know, Spurs have a spending ability that other clubs don't have as easily. I mean, we can spend over £200 million without falling foul of FFP. We've had loads of concerts, you know, at the stadium, NFL. You know, we've been waiting long enough now, having built the training ground in the stadium, and we've had enough events in there now since COVID, you know, and things reopened again to really, you know, push for it now. And I think also, let's not forget, you know, the TV money is bigger than ever. It's continuing to grow. Yeah. Spurs are back in Europe again. That's going to be even more money next season. But we can't always get to a point where we're having a sliding doors moment in the summer. And I think that's where we've been a lot of the time, right? It's that feeling of, are we going to go forwards here finally, or are we just going to go backwards again? And it's always, at least to me, it's felt like, you know, one step forward, two steps back a lot of the time. And I think finally now they've got a manager who I don't think he would have any problem in walking out the door if he's not being backed or if he's not happy with how things are being run. But you have to listen to what he's saying, and he seems to be very happy. And I'm sure you can come back to that and say, oh, well, a manager's not going to, you know, trash talk the club. But Conte did it. Mourinho's done it. I mean, what's to stop Postecoglou? I mean, look how outspoken Postecoglou is on so many things.
Yeah.
It's obvious by the whole mood of the place, how he's acting, how he's talked about it, that he's very happy with the situation. So I also think you have to look at the type of players we're being linked to. We're being linked to top quality players again. It's been a long time since we've been linked with good players that people have actually heard of. Of course, there's a few. Doué, I didn't know about him until, you know, a month or two ago, and other players, you know. But there are several players that are on the list, if you will, that people do know. Eze, Nico Williams, these types of players. You know, they play Victor Gyökeres, the striker from Sporting Lisbon, Ivan Toney. These are players that people know. So why shouldn't we be excited? Of course, you know, I'll be back and absolutely bashing the board if they don't back Ange Postecoglou. But, you know, I don't think they've given us any reason yet to not feel optimistic.
Josh, we're now less than 2 weeks away from our first pre-season game, which of course starts in Scotland against Hearts. Players like Giovanni Lo Celso, players like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, will they be involved for Spurs, or will they look to move from the club before then? So I'm talking the next couple of weeks.
Højbjerg, I fully expect to go. Several clubs interested in him. Atletico Madrid reignited interest in him. And there are several other clubs, and they seem to be of quite a high caliber. So I fully expect Højbjerg to go. I think we're all expecting that one to happen. Now, Celso is slightly more interesting because he's at Copa America right now. I expect him to go, you know, all the way. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. I'm expecting him to go, to be honest. But, you know, whether that one drags on a little bit, I have no idea. It all depends on who comes in for him, the type of money. I know that Unai Emery likes him at Aston Villa, but that would be quite a difficult deal to do. And again, this is another situation where are Spurs prepared to make a significant loss on a player? Because I don't think we're going to get good money for Lo Celso, even though I actually personally really like him and I would keep him at the club. Club clearly, you know, you can't argue with the lack of minutes he's been getting. I mean, that says all you need to know. 87th minute, he comes on. What's the point? He's been good every time he has come on this season. And I know he's had injuries and he's had problems, but, you know, this season, when he's been on the pitch, he's been effective. So clearly he's not in Ange's plans. Otherwise, he would have had minutes because there was so much opportunity, especially when Maddison not playing particularly well with coming back from his injury. So, yeah, I think he'll go. And maybe one other player that I would look at potential outgoing. I'm not saying anything's going to happen or not, but Rodrigo Bentancur is another one I would watch out for. I'm not I just, in the sense that we're bringing in Archie Gray, looking at Eze, Bergwijn, we've got Sarr, we've got Basuma. One of them's going to have to go, I think. And Lo Celso is likely to go. Højbjerg, unless we get an offer for Oliver Skip that's worth taking, a good offer, I think Spurs may choose to offload a player like Bentancur potentially, who, let's not forget, was in and out of the team towards the back end of the season. There were plenty of times where he was on the bench. Obviously he's had 2 serious injuries. He came back from the ACL, then got injured from Matty Cash straight away.
Yeah.
But looking at his age, and, he's only, I think it's only 26, but, with where he's at and having had the injuries and being in and out of the team, Spurs may have to look to sell someone. We're talking about Lo Celso. We're not going to get much money for him. I don't think we're going to get much money for Skip. We're certainly not going to get much money for Spence, who is, and again, Højbjerg, he's in the final year of his contract, who is going to generate some income for Spurs to go and potentially spend that little bit more and get that striker in, or get Eze in, and for me, I think Bentancur is that player that may, 50-50 really, but I think I could see him potentially being one.
Perfect timing on that, Josh, because I can tell you who will generate a few quid, and that could be Richarlison. Ben Jacobs tweeted earlier, Richarlison remains a Saudi target. Al Ittihad and Al Hilal have both discussed him. Spurs would expect £60 million to sell, but they haven't received any offers as yet. One to watch, though, between now and the end of the window. Do you think that Richarlison will be a Spurs player at the start of the season?
I do, yeah. I personally do. I'm not saying 100%, but I would be surprised if Saudi went and spent 60 million on him, to be honest.
Spurs would take that offer, though, wouldn't they?
Well, I think you'd have to, because the guy gets injured all the time. He's had loads of problems. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen the video of him with Basuma at the Tottenham training ground in the gym, doing the sort of Ronaldo celebration, looking good. But the thing is, unless you're going to get crazy money for him, and I would say 60 million is crazy money for him, considering, he's had 3 months of unbelievable form, 3-4 months of unbelievable form, and that was it. That's all he's had at Spurs so far. But I would be sceptical of selling him anyway, because for me, why does Spurs have to have this mindset of one in, one out? This is the big thing that I struggle with Spurs, is this sense that we have to sell a player to get a player in. And in some positions that makes sense. I think in midfield, that makes a lot of sense, because it's easy to overcrowd your midfield, get rid of the not so good ones and get in much better players. But for me, we need 2 strikers, and Son is not a striker. You can say whatever you want. For me, Son is not a striker. He is not impressed with the striker one bit. And for me, I don't see how it makes a lot of sense to sell Richarlison this summer. I expect him to be a Spurs player. I really do. I'd be absolutely stunned if he went to Saudi for £60 million this summer. And I think we need 2 strikers. We've got 4 competitions next season. We all want to win.
Do you know if Spurs are currently looking at any strikers, Josh? Any names you can give us?
Well, yeah, Ivan Toney is definitely on the list. Victor Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon, who's had an unbelievable season. And for those, I'm sure a lot of people will be aware of him, but if you aren't, then he came through initially. He was at Brighton and went to Coventry, had a really good season at Coventry, then went to Sporting for around £20 million and has absolutely torn it up there. Great on both feet, quick, strong, powerful, amazing technique. For me, my number one comfortably is Gyökeres, 25 years old as well, perfect age to kind of sign a long-term contract, and you get the best years of that striker. But again, I think price will be the sticking point potentially. We've got the upper hand in terms of Marcus Edwards' sell-on fee. we could scrap that, save a few quid. But Spurs would never get Gyökeres, for example, if we didn't, spend a club record fee. I think that is where we need to really be, is, are Spurs going to break the club transfer record to finally replace Harry Kane? Because if we don't, I don't think we're going to have enough quality. And Ivan Toney, there's been talk about £40 million, talk about, I was thinking, that deal makes a lot of sense. If you get him for 25, 30 million max and Reguilon goes the other way, makes perfect sense to me. But it looks like Reguilon to United could happen. And, I'm not saying it couldn't happen because, nothing's done yet, but I'm personally not so convinced by Ivan Toney. I mean, I was really impressed with him for England when he came on against Slovakia, but, the guy scored 2 goals when he came back from his absence for betting. He's, what's he, 28 now? I just think that deal could be one that we go for, but I don't see much sense in it other than Prem proven, homegrown quota are the only things that make sense about that deal for me, because age-wise, I'm not sure it matches with what the club have been doing. And also style of play. I mean, how similar is he to Richarlison? I mean, I think he's got a lot of grit. He will battle, but I think Spurs need a slightly different type of striker, someone with a bit more pace, someone a little bit more, dynamic than Ivan Toney. Lois Openda from RB Leipzig is another one that's been linked. He's played predominantly off the left for Belgium. Again, he's going to cost upwards of £60 million. It'd be a club record fee. He only joined from Lens last summer. So he was the Nkunku replacement, and he's been brilliant. I mean, he absolutely tore Man City apart in the Champions League. But again, that's probably one that I don't think is all that likely. Again, because of the asking price, but he's super quick and a completely different type of striker, can play on the left as well. I think Spurs will have a list of about 7-8 players. I just, for me, the one player I would say, I really hope it's not, and it's just my opinion. Just my opinion. I don't want Santi Jimenez. I'm not too many flashbacks to Vincent Janssen. He stunk it up for Mexico. His international form's not great. The Eredivisie, yes, he's done well, but let's not forget what Vincent Janssen did. I'm not overly convinced by that. But then again, the decision is not mine. I'm not paid to make footballing decisions. So we'll see who the club bring in. But I definitely expect to sign a striker nonetheless.
Josh, we keep seeing the name Jonathan David keep appearing, linking a move to Spurs and other Premier League clubs. And I know a lot of reports have suggested that he has come out and said that he wants a move to the Premier League. He wants that challenge. What's the chances of Spurs signing someone like him?
Well, I think that comes under the classic Tottenham opportunity. Cut price deal. Okay, yes, he's being linked with Man United. He's been linked with Chelsea, Spurs. There's a reason for that. He's got a lot of qualities, and I think in a lot of ways he would suit the system. He's quick. He's a great finisher. But is that really what we want? For me, Jonathan David makes total sense if you're selling Richarlison to Saudi and you're still going out and buying a Gyökeres. But for me, signing Jonathan David, although, from what I've seen from him, he does look impressive. I'm looking at that thinking, are we really saying that Richarlison is nailed on number one striker? Or is he going to play backup? I don't think Richarlison would want to play backup to Jonathan David. Do you?
No. But that is definitely an area where we need to improve.
So for me, if you bring in Jonathan David, it makes sense because you've sold Richarlison and you go and buy a top quality striker. If you're keeping Richarlison, you're buying David, then I think it's opportunity. And I'm asking serious questions of Spurs here, because there are a lot of good strikers on the market right now. And I don't see that as a replacement for Harry Kane. We sold the best striker in the world, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
we've got, this is one place, and I think this is the key one. More than anything, that position, how Spurs act there is going to really show the ambitions of this football club under Ange Postecoglou. If we go out and buy a world beater, then we know what the club is looking to do.
Yeah. Josh, last couple of questions for you. Wanted to talk a little bit about Jamie Donnelly. Of course, 19 years old, done extremely well last season in the under-21s. The Lancashire Post have stated that he has been linked with a loan move to the EFL this summer. Preston North End have now been credited with interest. BBC Sport have stated that many League One clubs and several Championship sides are interested in taking him on loan. Football.London earlier today have stated that Luton Town are interested in taking Jamie Donnelly on loan. Also, Will Lancashire has received inquiries about a loan deal for next season. In your opinion, what is the best way of dealing with players like Jamie Donnelly, Will Lancashire, because both of them were exceptional last season for the under-21s? If Ange Postecoglou is not going to give them game time in the Carabao Cup, the Europa League, and some sub appearances in the Premier League, is it best to then loan them out for next year?
Absolutely. When I saw the links with Luton Town, I was thinking hallelujah, because Jamie Donnelly, both of us, know how good he is, and it's clear that him and Lancashire, in my opinion, as well. And the other one I would throw into the mix, Tyrese Hall, and I'm purposely not including Dorrington because of his surgery. Even Gunter, I think Gunter has proven his worth as well. We've got 4 or 5 players that are more than good enough, too good for the under-21 level. I mean, we've gone and won the under-21, the PL2. So now is the time to let
comfortably, I might add. Yeah.
Well, this is it. We won it twice. We won it and then won the cup.
Yeah.
So, I think where I'm at is it's time to let the birds fly out the nest and see, if they can, really fly. This is a real test of where they're at, because PL2 football is not going to sustain them forever. And with talents like that, if you're going to just keep them there, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them because they're so good. Oxford United, I think, are another one that have been linked with Donnelly. I think it looks like Championship is definitely where Donnelly's heading, and I think that's the perfect level for him, because he's shown that he's good enough. I don't think he's League One quality. I think he's far better than that. And also Rob Edwards, for me, I've got a real soft spot for him as a coach. I think he is just the type of manager, that right nurturing spirit, the way that he, acted in the media, the way that he got that Luton team gelling. I just think that would be a great environment for him. Wouldn't have to leave that. He wouldn't have to move or anything like that. Probably close enough to him. And it's a club that are going to be looking to bounce straight back to the Premier League. Let's not forget, they got the parachute payments. Luton did amazingly well to get to the Premier League. But I expect them to probably keep hold of a lot of their squad and go again. And it's good. It would be good to see Jamie Donnelly get that opportunity to not only go to a Championship club, but go to one challenging, a bit like when Ollie Skip went to Norwich. And that was an absolutely superb loan for him. Spurs haven't got their Championship loans wrong recently. They've been pretty good. So Donnelly to Luton, let's hope so. I think that'd be brilliant. Lancashire, on the other hand, I think he's slightly more raw than Donnelly. I think Donnelly's slightly more kind of rounded and accomplished as a footballer right now. But I have also been very impressed with Lancashire. Lancashire League One, I think, would make sense right now. Maybe Championship. But either way, again, he's physical, he's quick. Why not test him in a proper league? Let's go. I don't care about Spurs winning the under-21, Premier League Cup, PL2, whatever you want to call it. Again, we've won that now. Won the under-18s, won the under-17s, won the under-21s. Let's let these players go. Let's let these players have a go, have a crack at first team football, and we'll see where they're at. And if they're good enough, they come back to Spurs and they're challenged for a place. And if they're not, we know we can sell them.
Josh, last question for you. Let's talk a little bit about the Euros. Of course, Van der Ven is the only Spurs player left at Euro 2024. As you mentioned, the likes of Lo Celso and Romero having a whale of a time at Copa America at the moment. But what have you made of the Euros? How far do you think that England can go? Because it has been a disappointing campaign for England, but we got through. We now face Switzerland. How difficult is that game going to be?
Well, am I allowed to swear? That's a genuine question.
If you wish.
I think England will shithouse it to the final.
I've said that all along. I'm expecting a Spain-England final, Josh.
I think I've predict. I'm in a predictor league. There's 50 of us in a predictor league, and I'm currently top of that league at the minute. And it is 500 quid in it. So I'm desperately hoping on, and I've gone with Spain 1, Germany 1, because the deal is you predict the 90 minutes, and I'm hoping that one goes to penalties. So whoever wins that will no doubt be in the final. I don't think France have been anywhere near it, but when you look at that route, yeah, I think England shithouse it to the final and lose. I must add, England will lose the final, I think, but I don't know. It was limbs against Slovakia right at the end there. I mean, couldn't believe it, but I can't understand how the whole country sees the problem with England and Gareth Southgate hasn't. It astounds me. And I know Gareth Southgate knows more about football than us fans and pundits and journalists ever will. But how can the whole country see it and yet he doesn't? Although the rumours of the lineup against Switzerland with Gay being out, it looks like we could go to a back three potentially. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll see Foden in the 10. Maybe, just maybe, we'll see a completely different England off the back of Slovakia. It's been a great tournament. It's been a really good tournament. In many ways, it's been so good because the teams have been so bad. I can't remember a tournament where so many of the big sides have been so poor. I mean, France not scoring a goal in open play, yet they're finding themselves in the quarterfinals against Portugal. I mean, Portugal, Slovenia the other day. I mean, it was just absolute theatre. Couldn't believe it. The pathetic Ronaldo tears, and then, such poor penalties from Slovenia. I was gutted for them. The Netherlands have looked good, weirdly, but when I saw them against Austria in the group stage, they were pretty poor. And Austria, a lot of people had down as a dark horse, me included. They go and they get beaten by a really rugged kind of battling Turkey side. Could Turkey beat the Netherlands? I mean, for me, the two best sets of fans at this tournament, I think that's going to be one hell of a spectacle. I've got a friend at that game. I mean, it's just going to be absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you're going to see a sea of red on one side, a sea of orange on the other. It's just going to be amazing to watch. But, you can't call it. I don't think we can call this one. I think Spain is the only one so far that have been great. But then they've played the worst Italian side I've ever seen. They've played a Croatia side who've clearly, they're clearly finished. And they played Albania and Georgia. And Georgia have been a great team to watch. I mean, what a story. But this is, for me, Spain's first test against a good team. Yeah. And likewise, I think probably England's first test against a properly good team in Switzerland, because it's probably the best Switzerland side I've seen. I was at the Switzerland-Italy game in Berlin. And, my dad's Italian, and we were there with our Italy shirts on, and it was a horrible watch. But Switzerland did look really good. But for me, the key in that one is Xhaka going to be fully fit? I shouldn't be saying his name like that. I should be calling him a certain 4-letter C word, but I'm not going to say that on here. I still cannot stand him. But he is really good, and everything goes through him. So, we'll have to see. I just think England... can you imagine if England win this Euros playing the worst football we've ever seen England play?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. But
if you had to have a bet, Josh, on the winners of Euro 2024, who would your money be on at this stage?
Germany.
Wow. Do you know what? When I went to Dortmund, I went into the German Football Museum, and I have been into some trophy cabinets and seen some trophy rooms before. But wow,
Just
4 World Cups, four World Cups and 3 European Championships. I tell you what, that was a trophy room and a half. That was a wow moment. 4 World Cups, 3 European Championships, and of course that old famous saying, don't write off the Germans. I certainly won't write off the Germans. No,
never. I don't want to go too far, with it, and I absolutely don't want to write off Spain. Where I'm at is the winner of that Spain-Germany game wins the Euros, and I think it will go to penalties. As good as Spain have been, they've been brilliant. I do think that Germany at home, let's not forget that the game that people will question Germany over was the Switzerland game. First of all, Switzerland are a very good side. Second of all, they'd already qualified at this point, so may well have taken their foot off the gas slightly. Germany have impressed me. They have impressed me. They look a far cry from the teams that we've seen at the last 2 World Cups. And the previous Euros. Home tournament, I think it's hard to count them out. But I just think, weirdly, I think if Spain played England in the Euros final, and I'm probably being completely delusional here, but I think I would rather play them than play Germany. Because play Germany, it goes to penalties. What happens? We lose on penalties. Obvious. Spain, they put all the pressure on us. We get a counter-attack. Jude Bellingham with his clutch gene. I mean, he seems he just, he could have a stinker of a game, but he'll come up in the 90th minute. I'd rather Spain in the final than Germany. Then on the other side, still on that draw, we've got Portugal, who, again, they've got a lot of quality. They've not been amazing, but they've got a lot of quality. And they're a team that, let's not count them out of shithousing it to the final. I mean, that's basically what they did in 2016. They shithoused the Euro, the Euros trophy. And then you've also got France, who have been absolutely abysmal, but they've got Kylian Mbappe. They've got the best squad comfortably there. Their second squad and third squad would be able to get into the knockouts of these kind of competitions. And what's to stop France clicking into gear against Portugal? And then, they've got the big tournament experience. I mean, it's just, I'm glad we're on this side of the draw, put it that way. Otherwise, we may well have gone home by now. But yeah, I would say Germany if I had to put money on it. And that pains me to say it.
As per usual, you've been an absolutely fantastic guest. Thank you so much for coming back. What's happening at the Daily Mail at the moment? Anything interesting going on? And what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, just covering the Euros. Then we've got the Olympics to come. So that's going to be huge. Wimbledon, obviously, getting underway. I don't know if you like your tennis, but a great match between Norrie and Draper. Norrie looked absolutely superb. Andy Murray and his brother, Andy Murray, I think that one, I don't know if that one's still going on. That might finish now. But Andy Murray and Emma Raducanu as well, his farewell tour of Wimbledon. So, yeah, we're going to be right across that, right across the cricket as well. It's cricket season. Jimmy Anderson's final test as well. What a legend, a true icon of British sport and English sport. Just across all of that until the football starts again, and then it's all fun and games with that and the usual Spurs beat.
Well, hopefully you'll be reporting, of course, on more signings for Tottenham Hotspur as well, Josh. But before you do go, just tell everyone again what to expect from your new channel and when roughly do you think it will be launched?
So, yeah, it's going to be all about European football. no Premier League chat, no Tottenham chat. It's all going to be European football. If I mention Tottenham, it's because I'm talking about a player that has been linked with Spurs, playing in Europe. Every episode, we're going to go to a different European league, and it's going to be launching at the start of the new European season, I must add, which is ever so slightly later than the Premier League starts. But yeah, we're going to go all around Europe, talk about some countries and leagues that even I know nothing about at this stage, but I'm going to learn, I'm going to research, I'm going to speak to people that do know about it. We're going to get some great guests on who know their stuff, and we're all going to learn a little bit more about European football. So if you like your European football, you like your La Liga, your Serie A, your Bundesliga, your Eredivisie, then this one's for you. And also, we'll do a little watch of any Spurs players that do go out to Europe as well, because I've got to have a little bit of Spurs in there, surely.
Fantastic. Well, best of luck with that, Josh. And when it's all up and running, please do come back and tell us all about it and promote like hell. And we'll get as many as subscribers over to your channel as possible. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend. And hopefully it won't be long before Spurs are announcing another new signing, and hopefully a couple more players will head out the door as well. Until the next one, come on, you Spurs.